I am Mike, a 20-year-old student. I want to learn English, but it's really hard for me. Every day, I try to understand English, but it feels like a big challenge. English is everywhere, in movies, songs, and books, but it's like a puzzle I can't solve. When I watch English movies, I don't understand most of the words. The people speak too fast, and it's like they're speaking a different language. I try to listen carefully, but it's hard to catch what they're saying. Listening to English songs is fun, but understanding the lyrics is difficult. The words are often fast and confusing. Sometimes, I try to sing along, but I end up mumbling because I don't know the words. Reading English books is another struggle. Even simple books have so many words I don't know. I try to guess the meaning from the context, but it doesn't always work. I get frustrated when I have to look up too many words in the dictionary. I want to learn English because I know it's important. It will help me in school and in my future career. But right now, it feels impossible. No matter how hard I try, I can't seem to make any progress. I've tried different things to learn English. I downloaded language learning apps, but they didn't help much. They were too confusing, and I didn't know where to start. I felt lost and gave up after a few days. I also joined online forums to ask for help, but I didn't get much support. People were nice, but they couldn't understand my struggles. It was frustrating to see others speaking English so easily while I struggled to form simple sentences. I even attended English classes at my college, hoping it would make a difference. But the classes were too advanced for me. The teacher spoke quickly, and I couldn't keep up. I felt embarrassed when I couldn't answer simple questions in front of the class. Learning English has been a long and difficult journey for me. Sometimes, I feel like giving up because it's just too hard. But deep down, I know that I can't give up. I want to learn English, and I won't stop until I succeed. I'm still struggling to learn English, but I don't want to give up. I know I need help, so I've been searching everywhere for solutions. I even tried watching YouTube videos and reading articles about learning English. I thought maybe I could find some useful tips. But most of the advice was too complicated for me to understand. No matter where I looked for help, I couldn't find a solution to my problem. I felt discouraged and hopeless. Maybe I'm just not meant to learn English, I thought. But then I remembered something my mom always says: when you're struggling, don't give up. Keep trying, and you'll find a way. Her words gave me hope. I realized that I needed to keep searching for help. I couldn't give up on my dream of learning English. So I decided to visit my English professor, Mr. Smith, for advice. Maybe he could help me find a way to learn English that worked for me. Feeling hopeful, I set off to meet Mr. Smith. Maybe this would be the breakthrough I needed. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts before speaking. Mr. Smith, I need to talk to you about something, I said nervously. I've been struggling with learning English, and I don't know what to do. Mr. Smith's expression softened with understanding. I'm here to help, Mike, he reassured me. Tell me more about what's been challenging for you. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of where to begin. But then I decided to be honest with Mr. Smith about my struggles. Well, I started slowly. I've been trying really hard to learn English, but it feels like I'm not making any progress. I watch English movies, listen to English songs, and read English books, but I still can't understand the language very well. As I spoke, Mr. Smith listened attentively, nodding in understanding. When I finished, he leaned forward in his chair, his expression thoughtful. I see, he said gently. Learning a new language can be challenging, but you're not alone in this. We'll find a way to help you. I felt a sense of relief wash over me at Mr. Smith's words. Maybe I wasn't doomed to struggle with English forever after all. Thank you, Mr. Smith, I said gratefully. I appreciate your help. Mr. Smith smiled kindly at me. Of course, Mike, he said. We'll work together to find a solution that works for you. Now, let's start by exploring some strategies that might make learning English easier. I nodded eagerly, feeling hopeful for the first time in a long while. Maybe with Mr. Smith's guidance, I could finally start to make some progress with English. I sat nervously in Mr. Smith's office, waiting for him to speak. He looked at me kindly and said, Mike, I understand that learning English has been challenging for you. But I want you to know that there are ways to make it easier. I perked up at his words, eager to hear his advice. Really? I asked hopefully. What can I do to make learning English easier? Mr. Smith nodded and began to explain. Firstly, he said, you need to immerse yourself in the language as much as possible. Surround yourself with English by watching English movies, listening to English music, and reading English books. I nodded along, taking in his words. Immersing myself in English sounded like a good idea. Maybe if I surrounded myself with the language, I would start to pick it up more easily. Secondly, Mr. Smith continued, set realistic goals for yourself. Break down your learning into smaller, achievable milestones, and celebrate your progress along the way. Setting goals sounded like a practical approach to learning English. Maybe if I took it one step at a time, I would start to see some improvement. Thirdly, Mr. Smith said, practice speaking English as often as you can. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Speaking regularly is the best way to improve your fluency. I felt a surge of determination at Mr. Smith's words. Maybe if I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, I would start to feel more confident speaking English. Mr. Smith smiled encouragingly at me. Remember, Mike, he said, learning English is a journey, not a destination. It's okay to make mistakes along the way. That's how we learn and grow. Just keep practicing, and don't give up. I believe in you. I left Mr. Smith's office feeling hopeful and inspired. Maybe learning English wouldn't be so impossible after all. With Mr. Smith's guidance, I felt like I had a chance to succeed. After my meeting with Mr. Smith, I felt a newfound determination to immerse myself in the English language. I knew that this would be key to improving my skills, so I decided to start right away. I began by watching English movies and TV shows. I found some popular ones online and started watching them with subtitles. At first, I didn't understand much of what was being said, but I kept watching and listening carefully. I also started listening to English music. I found playlists on streaming platforms that featured popular English songs. I listened to them while I was studying or doing chores around the house. Even though I didn't understand all the lyrics, I tried to pick out words and phrases that I recognized. In addition to movies and music, I started reading English books and articles. I found some simple stories and news articles online and started reading them every day. I used a dictionary to look up words that I didn't know, and I made flashcards to help me remember them. As I immersed myself more and more in English, I started to notice improvements in my understanding. I could follow along with movies and TV shows better, and I could understand more of the lyrics in songs. Reading became easier too, and I found that I needed to use the dictionary less often. But immersion wasn't just about passive activities like watching, listening, and reading. It was also about actively engaging with the language. So I started speaking English more often, even if it was just to myself. I would practice forming sentences and phrases while I was walking to class or doing chores. Sometimes I would even have imaginary conversations in English, pretending to talk to someone else. It felt a little silly at first, but I knew that practice was important. I also started looking for opportunities to speak English with others. I joined language exchange groups online and found language partners who were also learning English. We would chat over video calls or messaging apps, practicing our speaking and listening skills together. At first, I was nervous about speaking English with other people. I was afraid of making mistakes or not being understood. But as I practiced more and gained confidence, I found that speaking English became easier and more natural. Overall, immersion in English was a game changer for me. It helped me improve my listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills all at once. And most importantly, it gave me the confidence to keep learning and growing in my journey to master the English language. As I continued my journey to learn English, I realized the importance of setting realistic goals for myself. I knew that learning a new language wouldn't happen overnight, so I needed to break down my learning into smaller, achievable milestones. I started by thinking about what I wanted to accomplish with my English skills. I knew that I wanted to be able to understand English movies and TV shows without subtitles, have conversations with native speakers, and maybe even travel to English-speaking countries someday. With these goals in mind, I began to set smaller goals for myself. For example, I wanted to improve my vocabulary, so I set a goal to learn 5 new words every day. I made flashcards with the words and their definitions, and I reviewed them regularly to make sure I remembered them. I also wanted to improve my listening and speaking skills, so I set a goal to watch 1 English movie or TV show without subtitles every week. I would focus on listening carefully to the dialogue and trying to understand as much as I could. Afterward, I would practice speaking by summarizing what I had watched or discussing it with a friend. Another goal I set for myself was to improve my reading and writing skills. I wanted to be able to read English books and articles more easily, so I set a goal to read for at least 30 minutes every day. I started with simple stories and gradually worked my way up to more challenging texts. For writing, I set a goal to write a journal entry in English every day. I would write about my day, my thoughts and feelings, or anything else that came to mind. It was a great way to practice forming sentences and expressing myself in English. Setting these goals helped me stay motivated and focused on my language learning journey. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the enormity of the task ahead of me, I could focus on achieving small victories every day. And whenever I reached one of my goals, no matter how small, I would celebrate my success. It might be something as simple as treating myself to my favorite snack or taking a break to relax and recharge. It was important to acknowledge my progress and give myself credit for the hard work I was putting in. Of course, there were times when I didn't reach my goals, and that was okay too. I learned to be kind to myself and not to get discouraged by setbacks. Instead, I would reassess my goals and adjust them as needed to keep moving forward. Overall, setting realistic goals was a crucial part of my language learning journey. It gave me direction, motivation, and a sense of accomplishment as I worked towards becoming fluent in English. And with each goal I achieved, I moved one step closer to realizing my dream. As I continued my English learning journey, I realized that practicing speaking was essential for improving my fluency and confidence. So, I made a conscious effort to speak English as often as I could, even if it meant stepping out of my comfort zone. I started by practicing speaking to myself. Whenever I was alone, I would talk to myself in English, describing my day, narrating what I was doing, or even having imaginary conversations. It felt a little strange at first, but it helped me get used to forming sentences and expressing myself in English. I also practiced speaking with my friends and family who were also learning English. We would meet up regularly to chat in English, discussing our progress, sharing tips, and encouraging each other. It was a fun and supportive way to practice speaking without feeling self-conscious. To further improve my speaking skills, I sought out opportunities to converse with native English speakers. I joined language exchange groups online and found language partners who were willing to chat with me over video calls or messaging apps. It was intimidating at first, but I soon realized that most people were friendly and patient, and they were happy to help me practice. I also tried to speak English whenever I had the chance in my daily life. Whether it was ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, or striking up a conversation with a stranger, I seized every opportunity to practice speaking English in real-life situations. One of the most effective ways I found to practice speaking was by role-playing. I would imagine different scenarios, such as ordering coffee at a cafe, making small talk with a coworker, or giving a presentation in class, and I would act them out aloud. It helped me practice using English in practical, everyday situations and boosted my confidence in speaking. As I practiced speaking more and more, I noticed improvements in my fluency and pronunciation. I became more comfortable expressing myself in English, and I felt more confident engaging in conversations with others. It was a gradual process, but with consistent practice, I could see myself getting better every day. Of course, there were times when I felt discouraged or embarrassed about speaking English, especially when I made mistakes or struggled to find the right words. But I learned to embrace those moments as opportunities for growth and to remind myself that making mistakes is a natural part of learning. Overall, practicing speaking was a crucial part of my English learning journey. It helped me gain confidence, improve my fluency, and become more comfortable using English in real-life situations. And as I continued to practice speaking, I knew that I was one step closer to achieving my goal of mastering the English language. In my quest to learn English, I discovered the usefulness of language learning apps. These apps provided interactive exercises and games that made learning English fun and engaging. I started by downloading a few different language learning apps on my phone. They were easy to find in the App Store, and many of them were free to download. Once I had them installed, I explored their features and started using them to practice my English skills. One of the things I liked about language learning apps was their flexibility. I could use them anytime, anywhere, whether I was at home, on the bus, or waiting in line. This made it easy to incorporate language learning into my daily routine, even when I was busy with other things. The apps offered a variety of activities to help me improve my vocabulary, grammar, listening, and speaking skills. Some of them had flashcards with words and phrases to memorize, while others had interactive lessons and quizzes to test my knowledge. One of my favorite features of the apps was their speaking exercises. They would prompt me to record myself speaking English and then compare my pronunciation to that of a native speaker. It was a great way to practice speaking and get immediate feedback on my pronunciation. The apps also had gamified elements that made learning English feel like a game. I could earn points, badges, and rewards for completing lessons and achieving goals. This added an element of fun and motivation to my language learning journey. Another thing I appreciated about the apps was their personalized learning experience. They would track my progress and adapt the lessons to my level and pace of learning. This meant that I could focus on areas where I needed more practice and skip over things I already knew. I also liked that the apps provided a sense of community and support. I could connect with other language learners from around the world, ask questions, and share tips and resources. It was reassuring to know that I wasn't alone in my language learning journey and that there were others who were facing similar challenges. Of course, using language learning apps wasn't a magic solution to learning English. It still required dedication, persistence, and hard work. But the apps provided a valuable resource and tool that complemented my other language learning efforts. As I continued to use the apps regularly, I noticed improvements in my English skills. My vocabulary expanded, my grammar became more accurate, and my confidence in speaking and understanding English grew. It was a rewarding experience to see my progress over time and to know that the apps were helping me achieve my goal of mastering the English language. As I journeyed through my English learning adventure, I realized that staying positive and persistent was essential for success. Learning a new language wasn't always easy, but maintaining a positive mindset and persevering through challenges were key to reaching my goals. I encountered many obstacles along the way, from struggling to understand English movies to feeling embarrassed when I made mistakes while speaking. There were times when I felt frustrated and discouraged, wondering if I would ever be able to master the English language. But I refused to give up. I reminded myself that learning a new language was a gradual process and that it was okay to make mistakes along the way. Instead of dwelling on my failures, I focused on the progress I had made and celebrated even the smallest victories. I found ways to stay motivated and inspired on my language learning journey. I surrounded myself with positive influences, such as encouraging friends and supportive teachers like Mr. Smith. Their words of encouragement and belief in my abilities helped me stay motivated and focused on my goals. I also set realistic expectations for myself and acknowledged that learning English would take time and effort. Instead of trying to rush through the process, I embraced each step of the journey and remained patient with myself. To combat feelings of frustration and self-doubt, I practiced self-care and relaxation techniques. I took breaks when I needed them, engaged in activities that brought me joy, and practiced mindfulness and meditation to calm my mind and reduce stress. I reminded myself of the reasons why I wanted to learn English in the first place. Whether it was to improve my career prospects, connect with people from different cultures, or simply challenge myself, I kept my goals in mind as a source of motivation and inspiration. When faced with setbacks or challenges, I approached them with a positive attitude and a willingness to learn. Instead of seeing mistakes as failures, I saw them as opportunities for growth and learning. I sought feedback from others, reflected on my experiences, and used them as valuable lessons to improve my skills. I embraced a growth mindset, believing that with effort and perseverance, I could overcome any obstacle and achieve my goals. I reminded myself that every step forward, no matter how small, was progress towards becoming fluent in English. As I continued to stay positive and persistent on my language learning journey, I saw improvements in my English skills. My vocabulary expanded, my grammar became more accurate, and my confidence in speaking and understanding English grew stronger. But more importantly, I gained a sense of pride and accomplishment knowing that I had persevered through challenges and obstacles to reach my goals. Learning English wasn't just about mastering a new language, it was about proving to myself that with determination and a positive attitude, anything was possible. And as I looked towards the future, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would approach them with the same positivity and persistence that had guided me on my English learning journey. With the right mindset and a willingness to keep pushing forward, I knew that I could achieve anything I set my mind to.